Welcome to the Optimized Law Firm podcast, where we chat with legal pros who can help you run a more profitable and enjoyable business. I'm your host, Patrick Carver, and I'm the owner of Constellation Marketing. We are a marketing agency for law firms, and we help increase average monthly revenue for our firms by 300%. This is the first episode of the podcast, so don't judge too harshly. But we are absolutely pleased to be speaking with Matt Rotenberg of Dashboard Legal. And Matt has created a really smart product which helps lawyers run their day-to-day operations more efficiently, effectively, and profitably. As an attorney, Matt was spending an absurd amount of time just sifting through emails, hunting for documents instead of the actual legal work. And that's when he created this solution. So listen in as we talk about how to improve your daily workflow, deliver a better client experience, and save money on labor costs. Thank you so much for checking us out, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Yet to Be Named podcast or interview series for Constellation Marketing. And I'm pleased to be joined with Matt Rotenberg, who is the founder and CEO of Dashboard Legal. And I got to know Matt at Emory University. He is part of the famous Turntable Syndicate, some other friends of ours in school. But so it's an interesting story, and I'll let Matt tell more about it later coming up. But, he was a working attorney, went out, multiple years and, left that industry to tackle a big problem that he found within kind of the day-to-day workflow of what he was doing. So, let's get into it. So first off, welcome. And thank you so much for joining and taking a moment out of your schedule to chat. And I was hoping you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into, the project you're into now.
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. Happy to be here and excited to connect again. So I graduated from law school in 2013, and I went straight into working in big law in New York City at two large law firms. Was primarily focused on mergers and acquisitions and in the public company space. And I had always been interested in legal tech. I think since I was in law school, I loved the idea of trying out new products, seeing where the delivery of legal services was going. And then when I moved over to Aiken Gump, I served on the tech committee, and we tried out new products and talked to different attorneys about their workflow. And that really started my more concrete interest in legal tech. And when I started taking a dive in January and February into who was making what products for whom, I started just envisioning a product that I would want in my day-to-day workflow. And I looked at the market and saw that no one was making it. And so I started down the rabbit hole of what it would mean to develop a legal tech product and what it would look like to create something that would help the day-to-day for attorneys.
It's cool. It's very interesting because I think a lot of businesses get started out of the need for, it's a necessity, right? You're thinking of solving the problem. And, something kind of I was curious about with, your experience. Just tell us a little bit about your experience in practicing law, kind of the day-to-day, because I know when we synced up a little bit, you were mentioning how you actually enjoyed the legal work and the, kind of strategy and different things like that. But, what's the day-to-day look like or I guess kind of the worst part of the day, or just, the stuff that's difficult and time consuming?
Yeah, sure. So as a junior and mid-level associate, I really enjoyed working on transactions. I enjoyed getting into the legal docs and really working to add value to our clients. That's really what I loved about practicing law. What I found, though, is that the organizational demands of being a junior or mid-level associate means that you're spending an enormous amount of time just organizing incoming messages and finding them later. the constant search through your inbox to grab information for that partner, to find the latest client communication, to figure out the most recent document that's been circulated and red lines and so on. I just found that there was so much time and such a strong demand on lawyers to just handle that burden, handle that organizational requirement of the modern legal practice. And there was no real tool other than Outlook folders, dragging and dropping, trying to stay organized that way to really help the lawyers do that part of the job. And I think if you'll talk to any busy lawyer, any high operating attorney, they'll tell you that staying organized is a huge part of their job. And the need that I found was that there weren't tools to just help lawyers do that, to help that day-to-day constant search through the inbox, the tedious drag and drop of emails. So that was really the first initial problem that I set out to solve, was to create a better way for lawyers to handle the incoming information and to stay organized.
Very cool. And so did were you always kind of technology centric, or was it, did it come as part of a previous passion or interest, or was it something that you got into it and it kind of came out of necessity, that you decided that there had to be a better solution for some of the technology aspects of it?
Yeah, I think when you're in a law firm, or to a certain extent in any profession, you're very insulated, and if your workflow is working for you and your colleagues, you just kind of keep going. But my colleagues and I would always commiserate about this issue, about how to stay organized, how a partner would email us at 1 a.m. asking for an email from 3 weeks ago, and you'd have to go on this, search and destroy mission to find that piece of information. So when I started thinking about better ways to work and just envisioning it out of thin air, I took a look at what our colleagues in the business world were doing. I spoke to some of my friends who were working at large corporations or investment banks or whatever it was, and saw that there were products that were being developed to help stay organized, to help the day-to-day. Slack is probably the most prominent and important example of taking collaboration and communication off of email and putting it into a more fluid program in chat. So, I think my interest started from the legal side when I was in law school, about how the internet was changing how law was practiced. And then when I was doing it day in and day out, I looked to the business world and our colleagues there and what products were being developed, SaaS products in particular, to help with that problem. And that was kind of the genesis of the two things coming together.
Cool. I can remember pretty vividly when I decided to start this business. I was working at a software company, and it was one of these situations where I felt like I'd, really worked overtime on a specific project and, made a great pitch, and then just nothing happened. And it was like, one of multiple chances of that. And I remember just very clearly in my head thinking, I'm meant to kind of run the ship myself. I'm always going to be frustrated by this. Do you have a similar experience to that, when you were working within a firm setting, that you were kind of, you just got to that point or experience that led you to say, I just need to go figure this out, or, I want to go, this is my path? Yeah.
To a certain extent, it's still pretty early on. I've only not been a practicing lawyer for a few months now. But what I think made the difference for me was when I thought seriously about what it would mean to become a partner and what it would mean to work on really just a handful of transactions for the rest of my career. I just wanted to look at alternatives. I found that, like I said, I really like the value add of being a trusted advisor, but in the M&A space in New York City, I wasn't getting that opportunity enough. And so the impetus for me, I think, to make the pivot from being a lawyer who, goes in and does the job every day, and I found a way to like it. Once I figured out that there was an opportunity here to build something to help lawyers, that I could actually add value to that process, which is in desperate need of improvement, a light switch flickered in my head. And I decided that this feels like something where I can work in a much more dynamic environment. I can add value in a way that I wasn't seeing in my day-to-day as an attorney. And, I read a lot and went for it. And so I have a lot of good people on my team and a lot of support. And right now I'm feeling inspired. So I'm just going to keep riding that momentum.
That's awesome. And congrats on getting things going. And it's always a kind of, I don't know, it's such a mixed emotion kind of time period, because you're super excited and optimistic, and you're also really scared and kind of overwhelmed, with everything. So it's, I don't know, it takes a lot of courage to get out there and do that. So kudos. So we talked, kind of about the productivity, I guess the problem with a lot of the day-to-day of legal work. So give us a little bit of info about Dashboard Legal, and kind of, you talked about that problem, kind of what's the solution, or how do you see that it fits into the daily life of an attorney?
Yeah, sure. So Dashboard Legal is really aimed at doing two things. It's helping lawyers stay organized and helping lawyers collaborate with colleagues. So on the organizational side of things, the way that Dashboard Legal is set up is that when emails come into your inbox, they're automatically sorted into different boards, into different dashboards. And within each dashboard, you have a comprehensive view of all of the client's materials. You have those sorted emails, you have the relevant documents, you have a chat to speak with your team, and you have a transaction checklist. And the idea is that you can organize and segment information into different digital workspaces. So when you need to jump into that client's materials, you have the ability to do that with just a click. So I like to give the example, which I call the phone call. You're on a call with client A, you got a lot of windows open, emails open, documents open, and client B calls. A typical attorney workflow right now is to search their inbox for the latest correspondence, to open up their document management system, maybe email a colleague, look at the recent red lines. Dashboard Legal, you're on call with client A, client B calls, you just click into the client B board, and then boom, your whole UI becomes all about that client, and you are immersed in the context and ready to act. So it's an email client, and it's a digital workspace, and really the idea for the first value prop is the organizational piece. The second is the collaboration piece, and which I think actually has the strongest need at this moment in time, which is right now all internal and external communications are happening via email. And email is a good solution for work product. You need to send a summary of a document. You need to send action items in a bulleted form. That's good for email. But for working in real time, for getting legal work done, yes, no, look at this precedent. Have we spoke to so-and-so? That's better adapted happening in chat, working in real time. And that's what our colleagues in the business world have found. And I'm trying to bring some of that value proposition as well. So it's the organizational tool, dividing your materials into different boards, and it's the collaboration tool, meaning within the board, you have the chat function to speak with your team and a checklist that updates in real time, like a Google Doc, instead of having to circulate updates via email.
Very cool. And, for folks who may not, be kind of immersed in some of the technology aspects of, or may not have heard of Slack or be using it. How does this kind of, I guess, interface with, or what are how does an attorney start using it, right? Is it, because I know, I think in my father's law firm's office, they're all desktop Outlook,
Yes.
type people. And we personally are only Gmail, right? We're all in G Suite. And so how, is it easy to get started with this? Is it kind of like a complement to their email system, or does this replace the whole, kind of inbox, at least for the workplace?
Yeah, so the way I like to think about it is email plus. This is your email. You link Dashboard Legal to either G Suite or to Outlook, and you open it up and it looks exactly like your email. It'll seem familiar. We're building around this email functionality. Plus, you have all of these other features. You have the boards where you can toggle in on the left to access those siloed views of information, sorted emails, the documents. And then within the boards, like I said, you have those collaborative features. So I think the easiest way to picture it is Email Plus, and it's really meant to address the day-to-day workflow of lawyers. And I think we'll come to this, but maybe it's important to mention right now that most lawyers who are working in a either solo practitioner environment or small law firm environment are using some sort of practice management solution, a Clio, a Practice Panther, those types of products. And those are very important software solutions to help with the business side of running your own law firm. They handle client intake, they handle the CRM functionality, they handle billing and so on. That helps lawyers run the business of their firm. What Dashboard Legal is trying to address is the workflow, how you interact with your clients, how you save documents, how you sort and organize your emails. It's your day-to-day workflow, which is a complement to the practice management solutions.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into kind of what I was going to ask, which, was kind of what's the difference between something like this and Clio. But, I guess I'll rephrase it in the way that, it sounds like, I know folks use Clio and some of the other, because the core problem there is, they don't have maybe a well thought out or a structured intake process. And so, yep. Kind of, and I see it a lot as well with our clients, because, kind of the system in place is really just calls come into the assistant or maybe the attorney themselves, gets put down on a piece of paper, and then, are there follow-ups, anything like that. And so it solves that, I think in a lot of ways solves that problem. What do you feel like is the core problem, I guess, from that you're solving for in this compared, I guess, to like an intake system? Because when we started talking about it, I didn't, I was thinking that these were kind of equivalent products, but the more we talk about it, it makes a lot more sense that this is, for this other aspects that I think people kind of maybe not take for granted, but I think people are just used to like using their inbox as a task management and kind of this multi-problem thing. And, I think if you can bring clarity to that, that's a huge win, or at least that seems like the big challenge. For us, right? For anyone with a business that's email centric.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes a lot of sense that software innovation happened first in this practice management space, because that's not really practicing law. Lawyers need, especially solo practitioners, they need help running the business of their law firm, client intake, billing, follow-up, all the things that we spoke about that practice management really brings to the table. It has come really at the expense, though, of ignoring that day-to-day workflow, which lawyers have just kind of assumed is email and has been for the past 20 years. And I think we're going to see an uptick in the productivity space, meaning helping lawyers handle the barrage of emails coming in every single day, which is, you asked about the problem. That's the problem. There's a fire hose of information that has only increased in the past 5-10 years, but there's been no tools to help manage that flow of information. It's all still in your inbox. And whether you're an organized folder or tags user or not, you're still engaging in that day-to-day search. And I saw a great McKinsey study that came out. Let me just pull up this one statistic for you here.
May lead into my next question, if it's the statistic I was going to pull up about newspaper. But go
ahead. I'll go there in a second. But it's approximate. It's about the same. But it's the study found that 19% of professionals are spending their time searching and gathering information, and 28% of their time reading and answering email. So you figure you're spending 20% of your time just searching for information. That's an enormous commitment of time, when there are pretty easily manufactured tools to just cut that down and help automate some of that organization.
No, I think it's a cool solution to it, because we deal with the exact same thing. And I have to assume it's almost, it's just a complete, apple to apple comparison between kind of the interaction we have with a client versus what an attorney does, in a different way, right? Where someone comes in and you may be doing, we've got 30 plus clients now. Attorneys have, many clients in at one time in varying stages of, kind of information. And, I think universally when a client calls in, that case is the most important item for them. And, you're kind of expected to be up to date, know the latest details, and be able to provide kind of a very concrete, specific set of actions. And, as we've grown, and I think it's the same, I have to assume it's the same for attorneys, that the more you grow, the more you just it just feels so chaotic trying to be perfect, for everyone. And I mean, I think something like this, just sounds like such an advantage to folks who can kind of rely on that structure of pre-sorting, which is a very unique feature, I think, that I've not seen anywhere else or heard about anywhere else. It could be really, really cool for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And ultimately the buck stops with the lawyer. If you hire a lawyer, they need to be perfect in their organization of your materials. I mean, the buck stops with them. And so I think lawyers feel that. And so if you can deliver some tools to help them manage that, and the idea with Dashboard Legal is that you just have mini command centers. You jump into one client board, you're in the command center for that client, and you have everything you need to make decisions. And you can jump from command center to command center. That really enables lawyers to do their job at the highest level without the kind of micro stresses of just constantly searching for information.
For sure. And I want to kind of, I guess, change gears a little bit in the discussion just around, I think some folks may have, not resistance to, or they may think about a technology product like this as, kind of another, shiny object, right? And, but what I wanted to kind of talk about more with you, is kind of the, what's the average non-technological benefit to an attorney? And I was reading your blog post on your site, and it was just talking about how, the average American processes the equivalent of 174 newspapers worth of data every day. I mean, it's just insane. And, I've talked about this with people before where, that's, just so unprecedented compared to the millions of years of human, activity where, newspapers and data wasn't a present. It's like we're really overloading, I think, our systems, in terms of trying to accept that data. And I was just, I think a lot of people associate, productivity with doing more. But I also, kind of what I was thinking about with your article was that it really almost means that it can do less or the same without being overwhelmed. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I think that feels kind of like a lot in the DNA of the product, which is kind of, it's a cool tech tool, but also, having some more just peace in your day and not feeling overwhelmed with data. I mean, it's such a non-tangible but important benefit, I think, that this could provide.
Yeah. The volume of information is wild, and the amount of distractions we have in our day, which can be relevant to our job. You can get a whole bunch of emails from a client. The result, though, is that we as lawyers are constantly engaged in this pinging back information, pinging back emails, forward here, reply there. And I think there's a misconception out there, a misnomer, that the more we can bat back these emails, the more we can handle, the more productive we are. If 100 emails come into our box and we can achieve that inbox 0, we had an amazingly productive day. What I found in behavioral science research and in my discussions with dozens of lawyers developing the product, that's actually not where productivity happens. If you think about where your best work came in law school, in drafting a pleading or a document in your law practice, that happens when you have that blocked out time to focus, to concentrate, and you can start eliminating some of the distractions. there are certainly techniques to do that. I think we haven't evolved in a way with the software to figure out exactly how to block out distractions. But the more information we receive, the more important it becomes to set up those automations where you can block out the time. And having the different workspaces where your materials just live and you can jump in and out is one way to do it. It's not the only way, but I think it's one way to do it. And it's going to become increasingly important to carve out those spaces and to really handle the flow of information to operate at our best. And that's really where the focus of productivity software and innovation, that's where it should be focused in my mind, because that's really how you create tangible value and the opportunities to do actual legal work.
For sure. And do you think right now, I guess, what do you think, now that you've kind of really gone in full discovery mode on kind of legal tech and what's going on, with legal software, well, first of all, I'm seeing more attorneys embrace some of that technology side. And I think, especially I've noticed a lot as well with kind of what I would call the younger generation of attorneys versus folks like my father, who used to advertise in the yellow pages. And, it's like, it's very different now, right? They all have to kind of have a comprehension of the technology aspects. But what do you think right now are kind of the pros and cons of legal tech, or, kind of like what's going well and what needs to, advance or become more in line with just better, better performance and better, usage, I guess, by attorneys.
Yeah. So in 2019, investment in the legal tech industry was over $1 billion. Wow. There's money going into this industry to develop tools for lawyers and also for lawyers to communicate better with colleagues and in-house legal departments. And that innovation has really focused on two areas. In the large law firm space, it's been on artificial intelligence, contract AI, e-discovery space, which has had a lot of early traction, and then cloud document management solutions. So it's these big, heavy lift, cloud-based tools, e-discovery, AI. On the smaller firm level, as we talked about, it's been in the practice management space, helping lawyers run the day-to-day business side of their law firm. Both focuses of the legal tech innovation has really ignored the day-to-day workflow of actual attorneys. And I think that's a big problem, and that's where we need to shift focus. It's the process improvements to the day-to-day workflow of lawyers that I believe will have the most impact in the short term, and the accumulation of which will have an impact in the long term. I think that it's important to think about artificial intelligence and how we can develop these really advanced solutions, but the way that lawyers improve their delivery of the legal product is with process improvements, small process improvements that can enhance their practice. And that's where I think we need to focus, and that's where Dashboard Legal is focused. But I think when you think about and I know we're going to get into this in a second, but when you think about how a smaller firm attorney, even a solo practitioner, can grab onto these process improvements to improve their practice, there are some very useful, easy, off-the-shelf tools to use. And the first example is just Docusign. If you need a document signed by a client and you have to send them a PDF, or even worse, you need a hard copy wet signature, that's a huge pain in the butt, and you're not going to be used by the future client. Maybe there's some old timers who continue to do that, but as innovation moves forward, clients are focused on experience, and the process improvements get them there. So DocuSign is a no-brainer. If you need your client to sign something, send it via DocuSign, they sign it back, they get a copy of it, boom. That's one small process which makes a huge difference and can really show your clients that you're thinking about how innovation can help them just do things in an easier way. So that was a long-winded answer of saying that I think that the industry is focused on one side and one piece of it, e-discovery and operations, when the actual needs of the lawyer are happening in the process improvements and workflow space. And there are some things that are being done.
Right. So it sounds like, so far kind of the solutions are geared more towards, I would call the big pie, right? Something that's maybe universally kind of applicable or used, like e-discovery and things, regardless of the size of the firm, but solutions may be lacking kind of for the smaller guy and gal in that space. And it's funny, while you were describing that, it's just making me think of, how long we'll have fax numbers on websites and stuff, because we add that stuff all the time when we're setting up, somebody's website or, in a directory and things like that. I'm always like, who does a fax? I've never I think I've sent one fax in my life, but
I know it's still in the notice provision. All these fancy, enormous, sophisticated legal docs I've worked on the past few years. There's fax number is still in all the notice provisions. You put it in the fax number. I'm like, well, put in the email. That's all. That's what people are using. Just
For sure. So I wanted to touch on that, and then also, I've noticed that, well, especially since COVID's been going on, there's kind of been this, what I call a forced marriage between Zoom and attorneys, or, just video sharing software and attorneys, because, I think no one really, there's some people who have been interested in that regardless, but it really got a lot of other people who were traditional, meet in the office type of firms to, just have to jump in that area and kind of, just go into it quickly. And I feel like, it's not going to go away because it's more convenient than driving across in a city like Atlanta or New York City. If you're in a different borough, I mean, that could be, an hour to get there when you can just do a quick call. So I think the technology barrier has been diminished, and I think there's, it gives you more time for consults ultimately, or, buffer between your consults. But with that kind of in mind, I guess the question I was going to ask is, do you see any other technology changes coming as kind of the new standard as a result of the pandemic that won't go away? Because it's kind of my feeling that, there's going to be more, people will go back to the in-person stuff, but in a lot of places, I feel like it's, they're going to probably be Zoom first now. And I'm curious if you kind of envision any other tech changes, in kind of the new world.
Yeah, I mean, digital transformation was happening before COVID. I think COVID has just sped up that transformation and really put organizations that weren't thinking about innovation and virtual work first. It's put their feet to the fire. So the rise in importance of Zoom, I think you're right, isn't going away. People can communicate quicker, get the face-to-face, and get things done in a more efficient way, which if you look at any innovation in the history of humankind, it's always been, how can we do the same thing more efficiently? So Zoom is definitely a good example. What I think another innovation that we'll see on the horizon is the rise of digital workspaces, and it really enabling that universal field of view where different stakeholders, whether it's colleagues in a law firm or a lawyer and a client, can kind of come together and share information that stays there, that lives there, that can be referenced back, that can be edited at the same time, like a Google Doc, or just those digital workspaces where people can work outside of just the formal email environment. So I think that's definitely we're gonna see a rise in that as well.
Interesting. And it's I kind of forget that, that's an area of opportunity for a lot of firms, I think, because it's been so common. I mean, you've got Microsoft Teams commercials, you've got, some different solutions like Slack's not, but you've got, project management systems like Asana and Basecamp, all of these different things, but it doesn't seem like it's really made it into the legal space. So that's interesting.
Right. It hasn't.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit to, you know, kind of with your, focused customer in mind. Your experience was in the big law firm. What do you feel like the challenges are to the solo, to the small firm, and and to extent how how does your solution deal with that?
Yeah.
Interested to hear.
Sure. Yeah. The small law firm solo practitioner lawyer is has a whole, I would say, a whole additional layer of work they need to do to deliver the legal product. At a large law firm, they have huge in-house teams that handle client intake, that handle billing, that handle all kinds of the back office processes that that large law firm attorneys take for granted. At the small law firm level, solo practitioner, they need the tools to do it themselves. And so, what I've seen in a lot of interviews with solo practitioners and small law firm lawyers is they're cobbling together a bunch of different tech products, software products, to really accomplish the workflow that they want. So they'll have, speaking with a lawyer yesterday, a solo practitioner, and she works with contract lawyers. And so she has a Google Drive where she shares documents. She has an Asana account where she tracks a task list. She uses Practice Panther to handle her case management. She uses another billing software to layer on top of it. And the hodgepodge, I think, of software tools is something that almost all modern solo practitioners will understand. That's how they need to operate because of the requirements of their job. And I think that's not going away. So how do you enable lawyers to handle the business side of their firm with some software, and then handle the day-to-day just actual legal work on the other side? And of course there's overlap, but I think to the extent that you can separate out those two processes, you can have two primary pieces of software that really get your work done. And building integrations between the two is going to become more important. And I think as we see the development of more and more tools in the consumer market, but also in the legal tech market, there will be certain winners and losers in this software game that really accomplish those goals. And now I'm speaking to the smaller law firm attorney solo practitioner that accomplish the dual requirements of running the business and practicing the law. And any product that can build out a comprehensive solution for both, that's going to be the winner. I don't think that we're there yet. I don't even think that there are any leaders to try to accomplish that. I think Clio has a dominant share in the operations space, and that we will soon see new software in the productivity side and the lawyering side.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, as we've grown, with our business, and I know this is the case for attorneys that we work with, which are, we're fortunate enough to see them, their businesses grow, as a result of our efforts. And, they go from, it varies, but we work with a lot of folks who are just starting out, right? And, they're managing absolutely everything, and then see them get a first hire, second hire. But even then, I feel like, there are firms, there are attorneys that almost purposefully limit their growth because they don't want to deal with the administrative side, because it just becomes, overly cumbersome to try to, manage a junior attorney or manage two junior attorneys, and then, and how that all works. And I feel like, a big limitation, or I guess a big problem with it all is that, there's an inefficiency with the collaboration, with the task management, that doesn't leave you that mind space to kind of think about those other issues like growth. And, it's just kind of like, you're almost so overwhelmed on a daily basis that you're holding on and can't even fathom, trying to grow, because it would be, it's too much.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point. And I think that really points out the importance of what you're building at Constellation, which is the world around us is changing. how people find lawyers, how people interact with lawyers is changing. And it's become a more web native type of structure and a more client experience driven demand. People are used to using Amazon.com. People are used to using Uber. And that fluid experience is something they're going to expect more and more out of attorneys. So I think that to the extent lawyers want to think about how they can market themselves and prepare for the future of legal services, they can harness technological power and software to help them reach that point, to find new clients online, to help with their SEO, to help build a tech stack that streamlines some of their processes to run their business. And so I think that we'll see more and more rise in prominence of organizations like yours who can really help small firm lawyers compete in this new world while they get to still focus on what they do best, which is practicing law and thinking about legal problems for their clients.
We're going to have to do a glossary of Silicon Valley software terms for the non-geeks who are not. I was thinking
not
like
in the world.
UI and tech stack. Like it's like, oh man, is they gonna like people gonna know what that means? But no, it's my next question is around. So I see some really like, I guess when I brought up earlier, I kind of wanted to take this out of just like it's another tech product. We'll go into kind of some of the tangible benefits and actionable advice, really for firms that may be struggling, just with keeping up with everything.
Yeah.
And so, the first thing I identified, as far as a benefit of this type of tool is just peace of mind, because, it's stressful trying to run a business. I mean, it really is. And if you can not have that kind of thing in the back of your head that, oh my gosh, the emails are all piled up, in my inbox and I need to go through and look at each one. Just having some, immediately, I think gives you some calmness that things are kind of in the places they need to be.
Yes.
And makes it easier. And another couple of other advantages I was thinking about were better client experience. The fact that, like we were talking about, it's, clients expect you to know exactly what's going on. And if you can do that quicker, and, with all of the right details, as far as seeing all the matter, seeing, everything that's involved with that case in one place, it's a win for the client, as well. And the last one I was thinking about too was just, and I don't know if, you thought about this as kind of an impetus for the product, but I think it allows you, it's a catalyst to increase growth and profit because, the more, more time you can spend out, thinking about your marketing, thinking about how to, get the best lawyers, to join your firm, and get into these other aspects of the business that you're not filing, emails and saying this needs to go here and you need to do this and stuff like that. I think ultimately it leaves you open to other things in your business that need attention,
Yeah. So I'll take that last part first. And to the extent that lawyers can automate more of their processes, they can free up their time to do more important legal work, client development, or just go home,
Right.
It's and I think that tools to help them accomplish that are a huge value add. What I want to come back to first, before you get to the huge benefits of client development, increasing your billables or whatever metric you want to use, what I come back to is the adaptability of the product. And there are tools out there to do what we want to do what we've been speaking about, which is automate processes, share information more fluidly, and so on. But they all require migrating off of email. They all require going somewhere else to try to manage these tasks. And what I found with lawyers in my research, and also just the broader research on lawyers in general, is that they won't break their reliance on email. Getting them off of email is too difficult because that's their communication with their client. That's communication internally. Right. It's where they're keeping all their stuff. And having them move over to a new product where they have to kind of use both now and it takes time to learn, is the barrier. That's the most significant
Right.
barrier. So the idea with Dashboard Legal and why I think we're different is that it is email. When you connect your email and start using it, it looks and feels familiar because that's exactly what it is. You have the benefits of these boards, of being able to house documents within the boards, have your emails. These are things that look like your email screen. And so once you can get lawyers to adopt that type of workflow, saying that, okay, this feels familiar, I know what to do with this in just 10 minutes of linking my email to it, then you can start adding on some of these other productivity tools, and in particular the chat in the board with your colleagues, the checklist that looks more like a Google Doc that operates in real time. I mean, these are just low-hanging fruit which already exist. Lawyers can already do it, but they won't because they're working in their email. So the adaptability issue is something that I'm very focused on, and that I think is important. And so when you're already using your email the same way, you know how to use it, you can then integrate these other benefits to your workflow and start taking advantage of these process improvements to then leverage the benefits that you spoke about, which is spending more time doing what you need to do, having a more fluid workflow, and frankly, just having a reduced reduction of the micro stress that happens every day when you're trying to just find and sort information.
Yeah, and I don't want to downplay that because I think having a enjoyable work experience is like very overlooked, but such an important part. Where you don't wake up feeling overwhelmed, and I probably have more anxiety than other folks, but I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like everybody feels it.
Everybody, it's not just lawyers.
At some degree, you know what I mean. So it's definitely just it's a quality quality of life and health issue. So cool. So I wanted to get into some kind of like actionable tips for solo and small firms that I think from your perspective would be you can kind of add some value on. And the first one I was going to talk about is besides Dashboard Legal, of course, what's the first step you would recommend, to the average overworked, overwhelmed attorney who's trying to, run and grow their business at the same time? Is there, a kind of a thought process change? Is it a tool? Like what would you, encourage someone like that to think to try and get to that next phase where it's, it's more manageable, it's, you're able to grow, kind of have, your cake and eat it too without going crazy.
Yeah. I think that for solo practitioners, small law firms, the more that they can think about the client experience, the more they will succeed. So I'll start with a few process improvements, and then I'll go to the broader question. Process improvements, there's a few easy ones that I can think of. I mentioned Docusign. That should be a no-brainer for virtually every firm. If you need a signature, sign up for that service, get clients on board that way. The second is billing. Billing should be with a credit card or online or an easy setup wire transfer. The days of requiring somebody to see a hard copy bill, to submit an invoice, to even send a check, I mean, that sounds crazy to me. Those days are over. And if clients are encountering that type of experience, they're not going to use you because they experience in their day-to-day what it means to order a product on Amazon, to order an Uber. I'm not comparing the importance of those products to an important litigation where your livelihood is at stake. But what I'm saying is that consumers are also legal consumers, and they're looking for a better experience. And so the low-hanging fruit, I think, should be the first stop for every solo practitioner and small law firm, and that's Docusign and how you handle your billing. The other, and then zooming out a little bit, which is what I started with, which is the client experience. I think that we've become over-reliant on the billable hour, and I see this especially pronounced in a large law firm, but I think it's small law firm as well. The value that clients are looking for in the future is value. It's not billable hours. It's not how many hours did you spend to draft this memo. It's what was the answer and what did you do for me? What did you file? So I think another process improvement and a way that you can differentiate yourself and really become that forward-thinking attorney is to break the reliance on the billable hour, is to have an upfront cost structure for certain things. And I went through this with myself when I was forming my company here in the past few months and dealing with a lawyer who does work in these, with the process improvements. He was upfront. This is the amount that it costs to draft your bylaws, to draft your articles of formation, and to actually file the damn thing in Delaware. This is what it costs. I'm not charging you for any conversations you need to ask me a question. I'm not, you know, if there's a mistake or a follow-up, I'm not going to charge you more billable hours because I spend time on it. I'm delivering this as a whole product. I'm upfront about the cost. So those are three examples where I think that thinking about the client experience will be the driver for growth and for being competitive in this future value-driven, experience-driven market.
Very cool. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And those are very, I think, good areas to look into. So you mentioned, you know, Docusign, Zoom, and I think, you know, there's plenty of billing things out there. Okay, so are there any other tools that you can think of that are simple and, you know, can kind of maybe free, maybe not, I'm just thinking simple, almost like not hacks, but just, you know, tools out there that you can encourage attorneys to use in order to kind of get time back in their day. And I know we've already talked, you know, about a few, but I'm curious if any others come to mind that, you know, would be, you know, kind of essential for an attorney if they're wanting to streamline things.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, the adoption has been a huge problem. Lawyers aren't getting off their email, and it's hard to get them to embrace software as process improvements. But if they are looking for ways to do it, I think there are some free, easy to use tools out there. And one that comes to mind is Trello. Trello, Asana, Monday.com. These are all consumer and business facing task management tools. And if you're willing to spend the time to learn it, it will pay enormous dividends. So I'll give Trello as an example for a litigator. The way that Trello is set up is, if you imagine, just make it simple, 4 columns, and you have different cards, different rows in each column, and you can move the card from left to right as you go on. So for a litigator that has all kinds of deadlines to submit to the court, to respond to discovery, to submit the motion, whatever it is, they can move the card along as the process moves. And being able to visualize where you are in the process, what the due dates are, have the flexibility to move it around in a SaaS product as opposed to using Microsoft Word table or however you're keeping track of your deadlines. Right. That's an off-the-shelf tool that you personally can use right away to have that visual cue and that visual map of what are your deadlines and where things are going. Yes, it's adding another program to your stack, and I think that that comes with its own problems, especially if you want to work with another colleague. But yeah, I guess that's how I would address that question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the issue is not so much, you know, all new tech products are incorporating in or bad necessarily. I think it's just you kind of have to pick the ones that have the most impact, you know, and not try to have something for everything, right? And I mean, that's a challenge. We're dealing with literally today. We were talking about it earlier. You know, that you kind of want to figure out. The way I try to think about it as well in my own work is, you know, what are the things that I'm doing on a daily basis that it's the same thing. It's a repetitive thing, right? And can I find a solution that will either aid me, do some of the prep work, do it all, you know, kind of in that process. And I think if you think about it and kind of, you know, what's the thing that I do every day that sucks up my time, is relatively a binary, you know, in terms of a decision. It's either a yes or no, you know, kind of thing. And that may be checking on, you know, deadlines of cases. Are you doing that manually, or could it better be done with like a Trello board, right? With notifications or something. So I think it's just like equally kind of a mindset shift, but, you know, and then, you do have to kind of find the right tool though. Cause I mean, we've gone through like 4 different project management tools, right?
Yeah.
Until we found the one that kind of like worked in our system, and it works for different people, right? Some people kind of like this column structure that Trello does, other people like the other way. So I think, if you're looking to improve your technology stack and your, it goes a long way to, look into, kind of try it out for yourself and think about how your workflow, what you, put or what you, is of the highest value in terms of the functionality, and go from there instead of, kind of relying on what maybe somebody else uses. Because I think even if, we're friends, right, you're going to organize your thoughts in a completely different way than I am.
Yeah.
And it's got to kind of, be custom. So
match your workflow. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think you're right that it does differ based on workflow, and finding a tool that helps the way you work makes the most sense, and when we'll succeed. I like when you said, what are you doing every day? What are the tedious tasks that you're doing every day? Which was the core of Dashboard Legal. I'm dragging and dropping emails into different folders. Why am I spending my time doing that? We automate that process. Why I'm spending my day searching my inbox, toggling between folders, trying to find that piece of information. I'm doing that every single day. Why am I doing that? What's a solution? Well, just house it in the different boards so you can find it. That's where we started too. And I think that's where lawyers who are looking to embrace legal tech, those are the questions they should be asking themselves as well.
Very cool. So kind of on this thread with, productivity and work, just work life, how you deal with it on a daily basis. Are there any, thought leaders or just people out there that, that have influenced you that you would recommend to other attorneys to, that they should be interested in reading if they're kind of looking for some of these benefits we've been talking about?
Yeah. There are a few that I think are really hitting the mark in terms of what we're talking about and thinking about the future of legal practice and how lawyers can improve their processes. The first is the most preeminent legal tech scholar in the world, and his name is Richard Susskind. And he's written a whole host of books on how, from the 1980s, talking about how email would displace paper communications. And interestingly, there's a great story where the Legal Academy of Wales denounced him when he made that pronouncement that email would be the future of client communications. They said that he didn't know what he was talking about, and that he was bringing the profession into disrepute. I mean, so he's that's a sidetrack, but he's got great books out there. He just wrote a book on the future of the court system happening virtually, virtual courts.
Yeah.
So he's been a forward thinking for 30 years. I think that's the first stop. There's a few others. The CEO of Clio, actually, Jack Newton, came out with a book called The Client-Centered, let me make sure I know what it's called here before I get this wrong. The Client-Centered Law Firm. Mm-hmm. And he speaks about the importance of the experience, which is what I referenced earlier, the experience of the client interacting with your law firm. His premise is that for most legal services, the product is the same, that you're getting the document, you're getting the will, you're getting the whatever it is. The experience is the difference maker. And to the extent that lawyers can improve that experience to the client, that's where they'll succeed in the future. So I would encourage that book as well. And then one more, there's an author named Michelle DiStefano who does a lot of really great writing and research on collaboration and how lawyers can kind of break the mold of being tech resistors to innovators and how to innovate for the future lawyer.
Yeah, speaking of tech resistors in Wales, that made me think of, that it was going to denounce the profession. I know some of my dad's friends who, just can't even they can't stomach the idea of, like having a website where, I think the olden times, it was, there were just more stringent, I think, guidelines about not being able to advertise and stuff like that. But it's just, I think there's a set of people who, kind of pine for the old days and, and this are not interested in dealing with like the the market as it is today. But
Right.
do you so you mentioned the attorney that helped you with your incorporation, and getting that set up and kind of his process around flat fees. Are there other attorneys, working attorneys and people people you've seen that kind of influenced you, to build these systems and like build this solution? Are there any out there that come to mind that are kind of like very forward, mentality in terms of, I guess, the operational side of their practice?
Yeah. I mean, I'm speaking with lawyers every day now, multiple lawyers every day. And there are a lot of forward thinking lawyers out there, ones who understand conceptually that innovation can help their practice, that innovation is driving the legal profession forward, not replacing lawyers. The problem is they haven't seen enough products that actually do anything. They're still reliant on email 100%. So what I found is there's this kind of amorphous understanding that legal tech is the future and that it's there to help, but a lack of concrete developments. So, unlike the tech space generally, where there are a ton of innovators, people coming out with things all the time, there are much fewer attorneys who are actually making the break from law to develop legal tech products. I think it's going to become more prominent, but it is rare at the moment. There's a few. Haley Altman, who developed this Docusign product. She came from a partner. She was a partner at a law firm in Indiana. There's another article that was published in law.com about this lawyer. I don't remember her name at the moment. We connected on LinkedIn, but she is developing a wills and estates tech product where you kind of just pop in the information and out pops the will. So I think lawyers are thinking about it, and there are innovators in the space. But the more important piece of it is that more and more lawyers are aware that it can be helpful. They're just waiting for that actual product.
Makes sense. Yeah. Cool. So I've got kind of the last question for you, and it's really, kind of going on this. I think, what I'm taking away a lot is, that the right tools, the right solution for, can have a big impact and improve these, like tangible and non-tangible benefits or aspects of, of our life. I guess with that in mind, is there anything we didn't talk about, that you feel like, your product addresses, or, just that you think is, important to bring up for solo small firms, who are kind of in that challenging, position that we laid out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've covered most of it, but what I'd say is that lawyers, solo practitioners, small law firms need to be thinking about innovation in their firm and thinking about how to improve the processes to deliver to the client. At the same time, it doesn't need to be revolutionary. It doesn't need to be this crazy transformative program or process that changes the way you practice law. It's really the incremental process improvements that will make the difference to your clients and ultimately to your law firm. And if you can focus on those processes, you will be able to compete in the future. So it's automating those day-to-day tedious tasks. It's finding a better way to stay organized and collaborate with clients, which is what Dashboard Legal does. It's harnessing new tools to ease the flow of both information and friction between you and your client. Docusign, auto bill pay, maybe even a shared drive where you share documents or can look at the same document and edit in real time. I mean, there's a whole host of ways that you can make these subtle incremental improvements to really enable your practice to compete in the future.
Very cool. Well, I really appreciate your time, and I thought this is a really fascinating conversation. Made me think differently about a couple of things, in services and products we might, do in the future as well for attorneys. But I want to get you on record though. Will you do the podcast intro, since you are a music music man
Of course,
yourself.
of course, of course. I will definitely compose and produce the intro for Constellation Marketing Podcast.
Well, so you can. He's probably the only. Well, we'll see. But the only guest I know of, so that's going to come in that has a. You can find him on Spotify, but you can also find him at dashboardlegal.com. And
Yeah.
kind of where are you at? Like what I know you're looking to get people into the beta. What's the best way to kind of connect and just make sure they're, staying up on kind of what you guys have going on and, get into that pipeline so that they can take advantage of, Dashboard Legal solution as it is right now and kind of what it's going to become, over the years.
For sure. Yeah. I can be reached at Matt with 1T at dashboardlegal.com. And I love hearing from lawyers. I love talking to lawyers about their tech stack, about how they handle the client delivery experience. And for the innovative lawyers who are out there who want to take advantage of some of the really lightweight benefits that Dashboard Legal can provide, I'd love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out, Matt at dashboardlegal.com. We're taking lawyers to participate in the beta, have a really solid foundational program up and running. You can connect your email, you can use the board, you can chat with colleagues and store documents there. So the product is up and running, and we're looking for people to come and try it out with us. So if you're that forward-thinking lawyer, reach out.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate it, and thanks so much for coming on.
Awesome. Great chat with you as always, Patrick.